Not live. Mic check. All right. Lights are going. Welcome aboard, guys. Wanted to come on and talk about building a trophy bass pond. Got a couple things going. I got two consulting gigs going. One's in South Carolina, one's in Western Kentucky. And if you've been looking at some of the new videos I've posted, we got one we're draining and restocking in Thomasville, Georgia, Southwest Georgia. So South Carolina, Kentucky, and Georgia. The Georgia pond is actually the first person who ever took my advice and listened. Strangely enough, he's also one of the first people who ever took my advice. It was my friend Mickey Wilson's dad, Mr. Wilson. We call him Tex. He had a pond on his farm. I've talked about it many times. And the fishing was terrible due to crappie. For whatever reason, people don't understand that crappie cause problems in smaller bodies of water. Actually, the smaller a body of water, the worse problems you generally get out of them. And I get some guys who want to argue about that quite a bit. Oh, I've caught this or done that, but they don't have any data to back up what they're saying. They just say that, it kind of falls back on that. I caught a 7-pounder, so the pond must be healthy. It's not really how I look at that. It's not really how it works for me anyway, in my world. If you catch a 7-pounder that's 26 inches long and should weigh 9 pounds, that's not a good fish to me. So, like I said, they're not given any data. They're not given a frame of reference. They're not given relative weight calculations. So just because a pond happens to kick out a few good fish doesn't really mean anything at all. You'll almost always get that. So the pond is 6 acres. We checked that on Google Earth. We thought it was a little bit bigger than that, but seems to be about 6. And like I said, in the past, we've done this before. They drained it and started it back over, stocked it again. So it's a stream-fed pond. It's a pretty heavily flowing stream as well. And that will bring fish to you. That's how the crappie keep getting in. So it got stunted out. And just to clarify, I haven't clarified that. A couple of reasons why crappie are not good in ponds. The first is that they spawn earlier in the season than your largemouth bass. So you have to think about it not from an adult fish perspective, but from a larval fish perspective. So your crappie are born earlier in the spring than your bass are born. And so all those crappie fry get a head start on the bass fry for their growth because they're born earlier. And so when they hatch out, the first thing they start to eat is part of the food chain they eat is called zooplankton, animal plankton, kind of little microscopic or near microscopic bug-like insects. They're not even insects; they're plankton, but tiny. You need a microscope to see most of them. So the crappie are feeding on the zooplankton. And then they graduate up to aquatic insects and fish because they are crappie. They're predatory fish. They eat each other. They eat bluegill fry. They eat bass fry. So when the bass are born, the crappie have had a month or 6 weeks head start. Those crappie fry are large enough to eat the bass fry right when they're born. And again, we're talking tiny little fish. And that's a problem because we need those bass fry, right? We need a successful bass spawn. And crappie in a confined space like a pond take that successful bass spawn away from you. They can literally just eat all the if the spawn sets up right, all those little baby crappie eat all the little baby bass, and you don't get any bass born into the pond that year because they're eaten almost before they're even visible. That's a problem. Another problem you can get is the crappie are excellent predators. Just they do a good job eating everything, and they feed all along the food chain. So they're not only are they competing with your bass for food, they're competing with your bluegill for food. They get the head start, so their spawns tend to be more successful. So I've used a pie as an example before. I think it's a good way to visualize how this works with the fish population. The food supply is limited. So the more fish you have, the smaller each individual fish, just like a pie is limited. So the more pieces of pie you want, the smaller each individual piece of pie. That works for crappie, that works for bluegill, that works for bass, that works for all fish. And you can look at it as a total weight of fish in the pond, look at the total biomass, or you could literally separate out the bass, and that would be represented by one pie, the total pounds of bass, total pounds of crappie, and the total pounds of bluegill. So what ends up happening is poor growth due to competition, because again, we are dealing with a limited food supply. It's not an unlimited food supply, not an unlimited forage supply for any fish. Another way that I've explained this, and it seems to help people make sense out of it, think about cows. If you put cows on a field, you can put like one cow per acre and have healthy cows, right? So if you have a 10-acre field, you can have 10 healthy cows. If you try to put more cows on the field, something's got to give. There's a limited supply of grass. Therefore, you have a limited. If you were to do half that rate, put 5 cows on a 10-acre pasture, each cow gets plenty of grass. Going to get bigger, faster. If it's a calf to a cow, it's going to grow well. It's going to have plenty of forage, plenty of food. And cows don't grow like fish. That's the interesting thing about fish. Fish grow their whole life as long as they have food. But there's a flip side to that coin. They also stop growing if they don't. They don't grow like us or like cows. If you starve a cow, you'll see it get sick, but it'll still get longer and taller, and fish won't. Fish stop growing. They kind of adapt to people have phrased it this way. They adapt to the size of the pond that they're in. That's not exactly right. Fish adapt to the amount of forage they have available. So if the forage is low, the fish don't grow. Their bodies slow down. It just knows, they instinctively know that, and their bodies slow down to keep them alive. And that's the problem that we have with fish. They generally don't starve to death. They generally just stunt. That's the process of not having enough forage for your fish to grow is called a stunted fish population. And you could have a stunted bass population, you have a stunted bluegill population, right? You can have a stunted crappie population. And that's generally what you see is a bajillion crappie. So if we were looked at a pie of just the crappie, there's a bunch of them. They're all about hand size. They're paper thin. They're really not worth eating very much. But there's so many of them, and they're so hungry that not only are they creating that pie where there's a lot of fish, there's a lot of small pieces, skinny pieces of pie, but they're also making the other fish in the pond skinny as well. And that's one of the things that will tip me off almost instantly. I can look at the weights of the bass during a shock survey, and I can tell you if there's crappie there or not And it doesn't even matter if I sample a crappie in that shock survey. You can just show me the bass data. It'll be around probably like when you're anywhere between like 78 relative weight to about 85%. When you see all the bass in the pond at that size, there's probably a crappie population. When you don't see one jump to kill that mosquito in here, 90, 92, 93, 95, like you'll see a few bass, even in a poorly managed pond, you'll usually see one go over 95, go to 95 or a little higher. That doesn't happen with crappie competition. So that's important to understand, because no matter what you do, when you've got crappie in the pond, you can add brush piles, you can add crawfish, you can add forage, you can add whatever you want. You're still gonna, and I've done it. I'm speaking from a place of experience. This isn't book knowledge that I'm giving you guys here. This is, I've been in. Hey, welcome aboard, guys. Throw any questions in the chat if you got any. I'm working off of boots on the ground experience, going around. I ran an electrofishing boat across 10 states for 20 years, actually a little longer than that. But I have electrofished a lot of ponds and small lakes, and I've seen patterns over and over again. So that's what I'm describing to you, are these patterns in the data and patterns in the fish that I looked at and sampled and caught. And I think that's part of what guys kind of, when they want to, I don't know if they call argue or debate or whatever with me, they don't realize that when I put my electrofishing boat in, like, oh, they fish a lot. Okay, good for you. I electrofished a lot. Right? And you can't outfish a shocking boat. And you can't see, like, if you're bass fishing, how do you see the crappie population and the general tendencies there? And then how do you see the bass population, the crappie population, the bluegill population, the shad population, the sucker population, the catfish population? I've seen all of it and how it ties together, right? Not just bass. I'm giving you the statistics and the numbers and things in bass, because that is what you're going to be catching. But you'll see the same problems if you run relative weight with bluegill. When you've got a crappie population and you've got bluegill, you're going to see poor bluegill relative weights as well. So they negatively impact the bluegill and they negatively impact the bass when you have them in a pond, when you have them in a small confined space. And I'm defining that as under 50 acres. And I've actually seen what I would contribute crappie to bigger places than that. But under 50 acres, and the smaller it gets, generally the more negative the impact becomes. And it gets worse over time, it seems like. It also can be very sporadic, where you can have a few good years and a few bad ones. But when you start tracking that data, when you measure like I measure, you'll see what I see. I don't know how else to get that point across than just to say it plain like that. So I've told you all that. That's why we're draining the pond. That's why we're starting the pond over. Right. And if you have a crappie population and you want a trophy bass pond, I highly recommend you start the pond over without crappie in it. It's going to cap your bass growth. You're not going to get the 120, 130, 140% crazy relative weights like we got at Sugar Hill Outdoors Pond. When you have crappie, it's going to limit. And the entire idea of a trophy bass pond is to get the best bass growth we can. So don't put fish in there that's going to limit that, right? If you're going to go through the expense of doing all this and the time to do all this, and people always say, I mean, it's again, there's not to reinvent the wheel. I hear the same. Well, I'd love to catch a few crappie down there, but you're going through. I'm going to kill that mosquito. You're going through all this, you're spending all this money, and then you're going to shoot yourself in the foot when just go crappie fishing in the springtime in the river. where they're supposed to be, where the crappie have a healthy population, right? Don't put them in the daggone pond. I don't know what the, I don't even know why anybody likes catching them, like reeling in a wet sock anyway. They don't fight. They are good to eat, but they get mushy in the freezer if you leave them in there too long. So I'm not a huge fan of them. They're okay. I'll eat some. I'll fish for them a couple times a year. But the amount of people, again, I don't know. When you have my experience, when you've seen what I've seen, you wouldn't be a big fan of them either. They just a throttle limiter. It's like, oh, we got this race car, and then we're going to put a throttle limiter on it. It's like, what is the point? So the second part of the draining down process, we drain the pond down because we have to eradicate all the fish to start over. We're going to be buying small 2 to 3 inch bluegill, some bigger ones too, but mostly to get the forage base established. We're just and not spend a pile of money. We're going to get the smaller ones. You don't want fish in there, predatory fish in there, eating those fish. We need those fish to grow, and we need that's how balance works. We need to stock the bluegill at 500 to 1,000 per acre. You can split down the middle, go 750 if you want, but again, don't go under 500. And I don't think going over 1,000 does anything. Let's say this: I've seen people go higher than that. I haven't seen that create bass that grow better, right? So put the bluegill in first. Usually add a few red ear with them. They feed on the freshwater mussels, snails, things in the bottom, and they convert that protein to something a bass can eat, which no other sunfish can. And those snails are host to parasites on your fish, so you'll have less red sores, which equates to less stress too, right? We don't want our fish stressed out. So less parasites on the fish. We got a fish that spawns a little bit earlier than bluegill in the spring, so we get an early forage pop with the red ear, shellcracker, whatever you want to call them. And then they're beneficial. They don't compete. They're not creating a situation where they're limiting the growth. They're actually improving the growth of the fish. So that's a fish that we can add. That's a good one. But then we do the bluegill at the same time, and we'll let them go till next spring, and then we'll buy the small bass. We're not going to go buy advanced bass. We don't want 6 to 8 inch fish that we're going to spend $20 a fish on. We're going to buy 1 to 2 inch bass that cost $1 a fish, or maybe $2 now. Depends on who has them and where you get them and whatever. But again, we're not breaking the bank buying a bigger bass for multiple reasons. But the main reason is that my buddy Mick, he wants big bass. He wants trying to go the biggest bass possible. Okay, the biggest bass possible are grown by stocking those small fish. Those small fish go in and imprint. So by next spring, when we put them in there, one, they're little bitty fish. So they're going to eat little bitty things, little bitty bluegill reproduction. By next spring, we'll probably add a few 4 to 6 inch bluegill into that mix because they're big enough to spawn, and they'll be having little bitty babies guaranteed next spring. And that's what our bass are going to be eating. And then they're going to graduate to those 2 to 3 inch fish. And then they're going to graduate up to those 4 to 6 inch fish. Now, of course, bluegill spawn monthly once it gets warm. So there'll be massive numbers of bluegill coming in when we put those spawnable size 4 to 6s. And every month we'll get another wave of forage coming in. And that's good because we need our bass to eat a lot. And by doing the small fish, they imprint on the system. And they kind of, I go the other way with it. If they're not imprinted on the system, if you're bringing bass from another place, I'd say about half the time those bass don't grow. And I don't have the science for that. I just have the experience for that. I have plenty of guys who've done it. I've done it a few times in certain situations when I needed some bass for whatever reason. And transporting bass is not recommended for many reasons: disease, transmission, whatever. But the main thing to take away from it, those bass don't grow the way, even if you put them into a lake that's got plenty of forage, about half of them don't grow very well, if at all. They're not imprinted on the system. Where when we put them in at the 1 to 2 inch size, they are, and they grow like rockets. I'm gonna kill that dude. Coon. Sorry, I'm choking. Mick wants the biggest bass the fastest he can get them. That means we're going to stock 1 to 2 inch fish. That I've done, that I know. When I start going with the larger 6 to 8 inch fish, those are a year old because they've been at the fish hatchery feeding on pellets. So that 6 to 8 inch fish has been basically eating tofu, for lack of a better term. It's not real. It's not real. He's not being a predator. He's eating pellets. I can grow them to 2.4, 2.5 pounds in one growing season. So if they go in the spring, by the fall, they're a couple pounds. Why would I want to buy a fish that was born in the fall and now it's 8 inches? I'll blow 8 inches off, just blow that doors completely off that kind of growth, putting them on bluegill, on real food. So you're losing, you can buy an 8 inch long 1-year-old fish, or you can grow a 14 and a half, 15 inch long 1-year-old fish. The choice is yours, right? I prefer to go with the one that goes twice as big in the same amount of time. Ooh. He's going to bite me. Anyway, so that's the idea behind setting the pond up. Oh, the one other thing too, while I'm thinking about it, where the pond is drained down, so you can treat and eradicate the total. We don't want any fish in the pond, and that's the easiest way to eradicate the fish population is when it's low. It's easier to treat, it's easier to handle, it's easier to eradicate those fish. We don't want any little bass extra, any little crappie extra. We want our bluegill to go in there and live for 6 to 8 months and then put the bass in. So and we've got examples. Just go to the Sugar Hill playlist and watch. We've already done this once. I'm not making any of this up. I have documented it here live. Welcome aboard, guys. Just talking about setting up this pond for trophy bass growth. And the other part we've got to that pond is drained down now to dry it out, to dry the bottom out so they can get a loader in there and dig it out. It's 50 years old. It's full of sediment. Sorry. My voice gets scratchy. I'm talking too much. So they're going to dig, and we're going to, improve all the habitat, do some spawning beds, do some brush piles, do all that. Yeah. That's fine. You can do all that stuff. I'm not trying to downplay it. It's important, but I can also not do any of that stuff and still grow great fish. That's why I broke it down, the balance and how to stock this and how to set it up right. As long as you do it the way I just described it with the initial stocking and the bass and all that, you'll grow great fish with or without the great habitat. Can I improve it a little bit? Can I get it 5 to 10% better? Oh, yeah. Yeah, habitat will make a little bit of a difference. Is habitat the key? Am I sitting here talking about how I'm going to be structuring pea gravel beds and where I'm going to be doing blowdowns? No, I don't care. Throw them wherever you want to. All right. I just broke down how I'm going to grow fish. Right. I'm going to stagger the stocking. I'm going to go with the bluegill, with the red ear. Then I'm going to come back in with the bass. On this particular pond, it's in Southwest Georgia. It's agriculture runoff. It gets big green phytoplankton blooms after heavy rains from the agriculture runoff. Again, you get, nutrients, fertilizers coming in. The plankton takes advantage of the fertilizer, turns the pond green. So in that scenario, and I'm just, again, from experience, we'll have some threadfin shad in there. There are filter feeders that just swim around, filter that water, filter that plankton out of the water, convert that plankton into fish tissue that bass can consume. So, and it's it's almost Florida, so we don't have to worry about winter kills as much. The threadfins are warm water fish, so you can't put them anywhere in the world you want. They'll die in the wintertime. I like the threadfins too because they are open water filter feeder. They don't relate to structure the way bluegill do. So that will change the habitat. That sorry. That will change the bass's behavior, how they orient to that structure. If it's just bluegill, they'll orient a certain way. Bluegill and shad, they'll orient a different way because they're ambush predators. So they'll sit on brush piles differently when there's shad in the pond versus when there's not. They tend to get a little bit better surface activity, a little more exciting, a little more dynamic, chasing shad and things like that around than if it's just a bluegill pond. So I like shad for that reason. Now let's break that down though. Just like I just said about the pies, right? We have a forage base. That pie represents a forage base, and the forage base is, say, all bluegill. That's perfect for a pond. You don't have to do shad. You don't have to do, actually, it's preferred if you don't do anything else. Per gram of bluegill and calories consumed, bluegill is one of the best forages bass can eat. Crappie or not. It's about half as much. But let's just say we've got a pond with the bluegill established forage base and we add shad to it. Now everybody thinks we just made the pie bigger. There's more. We have bluegill and then we added shad. So now we have more forage, right? No, you don't. It's kind of like take a piece of that pie, take 30% of that pie. And instead of that, you haven't made more forage. You've got this many bluegill and this many shad, right? Hooking up. What's up, man? We've diversified. It would be like having a cherry pie and then a hunk of that, like a 25% of that cherry pie is now blueberry pie, right? We haven't made a bigger pie. We've changed the pie. That's what adding shad does. It doesn't make it bigger. If you want to make it bigger, you have to add energy. You have to boost the plankton. You have to, or feed the bluegill, straight feed, right? You add energy, you add food. Now we're making a bigger pie for the bass to eat, right? And again, that's why we want just bluegill, because just bluegill take feed. So when you put a feeder on it, you get the best enlargement of said pie because all those fish can eat it. If you've got crappie in the pond, crappie don't eat feed, and they pound for pound are poorer forage than bluegill. And they consume bluegill and they consume bass. So that's why we don't want them. That's why we're taking the crappie out of the pond. We don't want them. They're a throttle limiter. So I'm trying to tackle these misconceptions for you guys. All right. So adding the shad is not making your forage base bigger. It's diversifying your forage base. The size of your forage base is still the same. Like if you had a field out there, and you planted half the field in Bermuda and half the field at Zoysia for your cows, doesn't matter. You still got a certain size field. You haven't made the field any bigger. You've just diversified the grasses on the field. That's the exact same thing as adding forage to a pond. If you want to make it bigger, you add energy, not just stock fish. It's not how that works, and it's probably one of the most common misconceptions that I have ever seen. But for this particular pond, in this particular place, in this particular watershed, with this particular shaped pond and what it's going to turn into once they dredge it, I like threadfin shad. I think that will be a benefit. It will convert the blooms that come off when the heavy fertilizer hits the water and makes the water real green. That shad will filter that and will convert that to energy for our bass. It'll also go away. You can fertilize a pond in the Southeast to do this. You can basically become a plankton farmer and fertilize and boost that plankton up. But because of the heavy runoff that we're getting, we're not going to be doing that. That's why we're adding the feeder. You can skip that. Excuse me. You can skip that fertilizer part. Again, just going off experience, we don't want to be adding nutrients into a pond that could possibly get rain and add more nutrients. We're not doing that. So we're going to skip that, and we're just going to do light feeding straight to the bluegill, and we're going to let the shad deal with whatever they get from the fertilizer runoff. And then we're going to add our bass in the spring, and we're going to grow them. We're actually going to add them light. Probably going to do 35 per acre. Probably do F1s. It'll depend on what's available though. Like it's easier now to kind of get a game plan because a lot more fisheries have more selections of bass available. Back in the day when I first got started, you got what you got and you did your best with what you could do. Now there's, a couple places you can get them and genetic strains, and sometimes you can grow all female and so on and so forth. Depends on your budget, depends on what's available. But we're going to go light. We went 40 per acre in Sugar Hill. I think we're thinking of dropping that down a little bit, maybe do like 35 F1s. The cross between a Florida and a Northern is an F1. It means first generation. You remember your Punnett square from school. So the F1 means first generation cross between Northern and Florida. And what you get there is called hybrid vigor. Since they are two different species of fish now, as they probably should have always been, not just a subspecies. But when you cross two of anything that can hybridize, the offspring generally gets bigger, faster, and stronger. Plants too. Doesn't matter what you cross. So hybrid vigor, we're gonna use that hybrid vigor to our advantage to grow big bass. So we'll stock F1s. And I have personally witnessed F1s go north of 12 pounds in 4 years. So that falls right in line with stocked at this rate. If you stock 50 bass per acre, you're not going north of 12 pounds in 4 years. It's not happening. You have a limited forage supply, right? So the more bass, just like we talked about, it's like a pie. The more bass you put in there, just like the more pieces of pie you cut, the smaller each pie has to be. So we stock fewer bass, so each piece of pie is larger. And that's how you grow trophy fish. And that's why you hear me preach harvesting fish. You're trying to grow the biggest fish possible. Releasing them is not the way this is done. We intentionally stock them at low density for a reason, for that pie. That we want bigger fish. So each individual pie, you have to have fewer pieces for each pie slice to get a bigger piece of the forage base. you need fewer bass per acre. Once the bass start reproducing, and that's the part that guys doesn't sink in, every spring more bass are born. And mostly those the adult bass eat the little ones. They're not on the same team. If a bass is small and a bass is big, the big bass eats the small one. It's a very important forage source for the larger fish. Welcome aboard, everyone. If you have any questions on this stuff, just throw it in the chat. I'll be glad to field any questions. Really want to kill this stupid. That's why I keep looking around. Sorry. There's a mosquito in here. Very smart. Very agile. Missed him. Anyway, that's the general idea behind establishing a trophy bass fishery. And once you see it and have stocked a lake and grown a 10-pound fish or an 8-pound fish or, a trophy fish, anything north of 8, I consider a trophy, really. It's a really nice fish. So once you've established a pond or a small lake to grow and done it, the whole process like this, where we added the forage and we added the bass and we stocked them and we grew them ourselves, that's a really good way to learn. I've learned it. I don't think any of that made me worse at fishing, although I'm not talking about fishing at all. Right? Have I talked about lure selection? Have I talked about lines or rods? No. You can translate all of that to a trophy bass lake, right? We just said it. To grow big fish, we have to have fewer fish per acre. So when you go to a lake, it's a trophy lake, you automatically know there's fewer fish per acre. Critical thinking, common sense, whatever you want to call it, tells you, okay, there's fewer fish per acre. They're probably going to be harder to catch. You're going to have to grind it out. You're not going to be catching fish after fish after fish in a trophy fishery. Not saying you can't have good days on a trophy fishery where a lot of fish bite. You absolutely can. But just generally speaking, since we understand those dynamics, we also understand that we're going to a place that grows big fish because we've seen and heard everybody talking about them, right? On the flip side, let's say we don't know anything about the lake, right? And we're just going fishing one day. I just posted a video up on YouTube about that, using some lures and how I use the lures to look at what I'm, to help me get an idea of what's going on with the balance of the fishery. So say I pull up and I catch a 1-pounder. I don't even weigh it or measure anything. You don't need data. I don't use any scientific data. I just catch a 1-pounder. And then I catch another one. And then I catch another one. And then I catch another one and another one and another one. And before very long, between the two people in the boat, we've boated 21-pound bass in just a few hours. All right. I'm collecting information with all that, right? I got some questions coming in. And that information is it's a stunted bass fishery, probably. And that doesn't mean it's not a bass won't climb up and start eating those 1-pounders and get big again. What I'm saying is, though, in a balanced fishery that produces good fish, you're going to see 1, 2, 3. You're going to see a diversity of size. So when I start seeing all one size of fish, I start getting a red flag. Hooking Up's got some questions. So what do you got here? Caught 50 bass under 14 inches, right? Don't like that. So you're fishing in one of those tournaments that just goes by. How does that work? Like you can take 10 or you're saying 105 inches. What's the limit of fish on that? Is it a 5 fish that totals however many inches. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will tear you out of the frame. You want me your 5 longest bass? Gotcha. Well, yeah, just like I said, let me grow these fish. Give me 3 or 4 years, right? Come to my little 6-acre farm pond. Yeah, I'm gonna kick your ass. I'm gonna weigh in 5 fish and all better than 20. Better be 24. I mean, again, on a managed pond, I can't even count how many 8-pound fish I've caught. Honestly, I don't. 1,000? I don't even know. Like an 8-pounder doesn't even really do that much for me anymore. I've caught so many. And it's just because of where I fished. I grew them there. Like let me put it to you this way: on the few people that did listen, and the few people that had decent fisheries that would not go online, do their own research, and completely screw the pooch on that, and stock their leg and not listen. There was more of that than anything, if you can't tell. But on the guys who listen and stocked, I just go fish their legs. I pull through once a month and I do a little fishing, a couple of hours. It was very rare to not catch a 7 or 8 pounder. Like they would just have to be not biting at all in a good, fresh, newly stocked lake. Like you're gonna go catch fish like almost every time you go. So yeah, I believe that the guy, he's got a managed pond, he's gonna whip your ass. It's almost not even fair, especially if that pond is like mm, probably like 5 acres or bigger. Once you get under 5 acres, that gets harder to manage sometimes. It doesn't. It's kind of counterintuitive that way, but how do I put it? A smaller pond can be impacted by more things like fishing, predators, idiots, whatever. Um, and you can negatively impact a smaller pond easier. I guess is the best way to put it. And that negative impact makes it difficult to manage, makes it more expensive to manage. I'd much rather have a 10-acre pond than a 5. And now when you want to get into like places that'll put off multiple 10-pound fish in a day, 20, 25 acres to 50 acres. All right, now you've gotten to the point. And again, it all goes back to the size of the field. We're increasing the size of the field. Limit the numbers of bass, increase the size of the field. Or numbers of cows in my field scenario, right? Got a big field, few cows. Big lake, few fish. That will grow fish. Midwest, what's up? Oh yeah, it's pro football. Well, my throat's a little scratchy, and I'm kind of choking and coughing in everybody's ear. Are the Lions winning? I'm not watching pro football tonight, obviously. I just had some ideas about basic pond management stuff. What I got going. I can touch on too. I did post a video on here about Western Kentucky, Mr. Davenport's place, 30 acres of water, very interesting place. Stunted to hell and back. Had a 48% relative weight fish, one of the lowest I've ever measured. Stunted fishery, and we're going to be working with him some to help improve that. That's in a mine, an old coal mine in Western Kentucky. There was 3 lakes on that property, a 40, a 30, and a 20. Down by 3 to the Chiefs. I want the Lions to win against the Chiefs. I'm going to go for the Lions. Lions were looking good last year. I don't know what happened to them. I don't pay that much attention to pros, but they won a lot of games. It seems like they had a quarterback. I know him, Matthew Stafford, and then they didn't have a good team, and then they got a good team and then needed the quarterback back. I don't know how that works, but they got some good wide receivers, I think, right? I can't think of that guy's name. It's like 2 names or something. Oh, he's probably not even there and probably traded him or something. Yeah, Pat's looking good this year. I haven't even watched any pros. Georgia squeaked by Auburn yesterday, looking like three kinds of crap. But I don't know. Georgia also went back-to-back national championships a couple years ago, so they're going to have to play a lot worse than that before I get too mad. It drives me crazy too. Those dudes will be like, you'll listen to the internet or whatever guys talk college football, and well, Georgia's not looking like they did in 21. Yeah, no kidding, right? Neither is anybody else on planet Earth. It's kind of hard to field one of the best college defenses of all time every single season. That's not even a fair comparison. That's it. Amon-Ra St. Brown. You still have him in Detroit? Yeah, that dude is an awesome receiver, dude. I don't even know where he went to school for college. But yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, he's a good player. But yeah, Georgia didn't look so swell. They really got thumped. But I will say this, Auburn lost because of their discipline. I think we had more penalty yardage than our offense had yards. They looked terrible. They didn't have any discipline. So they shot themselves in the foot. If they just would have played a little bit more discipline, they would have whipped Georgia. But they didn't. I have to give Kirby Smart that. We don't get a lot of penalties too much. And you got to play 4 quarters against the Bulldogs. They'll get you. And they got them boys. But I don't think this is going to be a championship year for Georgia. He went to USC. Yeah. That's a good school, too. Yeah, I don't think Georgia won the SEC last year. That was really good. Maybe they'll play for it. That'd be cool. But Bama got them. Bama looked good. Bama looks like the dang Patriots every time they play Georgia. They can look like crap. They'll lose to Vanderbilt next week, but they'll play us like Tom Brady and them. It's amazing how that always works. Stafford made you a Bulldog fan. Stafford's a good dude, man. He was good in college, man. He could fling that football, dude. I mean, like a laser down the field. It was unreal how what cannon for an arm. Thanks, Midwest. Georgia's a great school, man. It's awesome. If you're ever in Georgia, go to Athens, man. It's the best town in Georgia. It's a lot of fun. Good food there, cool people, good diversity of people, because university's there. But it's also like an agriculture university. So, like, I went to school there for forestry, and there's ag school, and there's lawyer school, and vet school, and it's real diverse. It's super cool. Good place. And then I got one more client that came through doing some consulting with over in, ironically enough, another place that had like strip mines over in South Carolina. But I haven't been over there to look at those ponds yet. I was just texting him today, trying to make my schedule work. Matty Ice, yeah, man. He's a good dude too, man. Are you talking about Stafford? Because we used to call Matty Ice the guy for the quarterback for the Falcons. Am I getting them mixed up? I don't know. This ain't a football channel, boys. Now, what's cool though, some of the football players do follow my favorite Georgia Bulldog of all time, really, just because of like how well, 2 of them really. I like Chubb. I like Nick Chubb a lot. He's a good dude. But my favorite Bulldog, and I think underrated Bulldog, Roquan Smith. Man, you ain't never seen anybody play football like Roquan Smith his last year at Georgia. Holy crap. It's like, how many tackles does Roquan have? All of them. You get like 28 tackles in a game. It was ridiculous. Guy was so good. I used to love Roquan. Man, I wish he'd still play. he wasn't like a super like 5-star. I mean, I'm sure he was a good football player and in school had to be so talented, but he wasn't hyped up or anything like that. It seems like the best players too are like that. They're not like these so-called experts don't really ever get that right. Oh, he's a 5-star, he's recruited, he's this, he's kind of like what's his name at Texas, the Manning kid. Not looking so great. Everybody hyped him up, but maybe he'll do better later, but he's not looking so hot now. I think they got by Oklahoma this week, but he's not looking so hot. And then the kids they don't really talk about are the ones that are really good. So I don't listen to talking heads very much. Well, what was cool though about Roquan, somebody was talking about Roquan on Instagram years ago, probably like 4 or 5 years ago. We got into a conversation like this. We were talking about okay, so they call him Matty Ice in Detroit. I got you. He did come from behind. You're right about it. He was a good football player, man. Stafford is good. But anyway, Roquan. So some dude was talking about, I don't know, we were talking about, just talking smack. And he said something about Roquan going to Ohio State. And I was like, man, that's a bunch of crap. Roquan went to Georgia. And I tagged Roquan. I guess like at Roquan Smith. And I believe the way I said it, I heard it on the radio. One guy said it one time years and years and years ago. He's like, the best part about having Roquan Smith on the team is the only thing the defensive coordinator has to do is make sure that he gets off the bus at the stadium. And it was true. He could play, man. And I said that to that guy. Like, man, we had Roquan Smith. He wasn't in Ohio State. He played at Georgia, and he was awesome. And then Roquan Smith started following my page for a long time, for a couple years. He finally dropped off, but I thought that was cool, man. A few of the kids from the Georgia team, follow me. Micah Morris, the starting left guard, 56. He follows my page still. He likes fishing stuff, and that's cool, man. I like another kid that really he asked me questions. I knew his mom. His mom was my pharmacist back home in Georgia. His name's Sammy Brown. He plays middle linebacker for Clemson. I wish Sammy went to Georgia, but he didn't. That's okay. You don't hold it against him. But Sammy's a good boy, good kid, good football player too, man. Real good kid. Likes to fish, Solid. But yeah, man, you're right about Stafford, man. You don't ever bet against Matt Stafford. Yeah. Roquan Smith will get after God himself. I'm telling you, man, that guy is a menace. I have never seen anybody hit and tackle. He's like a magnet. He just and gets them. I like him. I missed him. Wish he could come back. Alas, he cannot. But I don't even know who Georgia's got this week. Oh, I think maybe Ole Miss. I think that's right. Hey, beat Auburn about 9 years in a row now. It used to be going back and forth with Auburn pretty good, like series tied up and playing close, tight games with them. But ever since we got Kirby Smart, he's been thumping Auburn pretty good. Not Alabama, but Auburn. I should watch more pro football. I just don't. I don't even know how we got talking about football. Because Midwest came in talking about the Lions, I guess. Anyway, I do have to go to South Carolina, do some consulting in another strip mine pond. And there's a 9-acre pond over there. And that dude's talking about draining that pond down and starting it over. And that'll be good. Have a couple places like that going again. I'm really surprised. Like, the page is popular, the thing, everything's growing social media wise, but not the consulting. You would think that having that much exposure on social media would, line up a few jobs. It's been remarkably slow for me on that front. And it's not, again, it's not like, if in the 20 something years that I was in business for myself, I could just do nothing but do fisheries management and do what we're talking about here, I wouldn't be talking about it. I wouldn't be doing it on social media. I'd just be doing it. I'd be living a life, growing fish and going fishing. Um, Alas, that did not work out. And I was doing spraying and I was doing a lot of other jobs that I didn't like doing. So I sold the company, but I still talk about the fisheries part of it. Um, and I think that's reflective onto here. There's a huge following of people, but there's not a huge following of people who own lakes or own ponds, you know? Oh, that's a good question, Midwest. Um, well, the sediment loading is a natural process. The pond is 50 years old, 52 years old, I think Mickey said. Um, so you got that, the whole natural process, but it's also both sides of it and upstream because there's a big stream that feeds into it. That's all agriculture. There's plowed fields around it, constantly around it, all the time, 24/7. So anything in the creek and anything, it's all exaggerated by agriculture, I guess is the best way to put that. So yeah, it and it also was built. Um, it was just kind of dammed up and built. It wasn't engineered. It wasn't something that was dug out originally. So it's really not a very deep pond anyway. It was built for irrigation for the fields. They're just pumping water out of it. Just backed up a creek so they could have more water, basically. And back in a time when you didn't have it was your property, you just backed it up. Just built it. So, oh yeah, Tom Brady. Yeah, it's farm fields. Correct. Yes, sir. So, it is what it is. Play it as it lies, kind of like golf. You got to go with what you got. But we have done this all before, and in digging it out is going to make it much healthier and much better and give it, probably 50 more years of life. And then, like I said, probably 25 years ago now or so, almost 30 years ago, we did drain this down and do this before. It could have been done 10 years ago, like 15 years after we did it or so, but that's not how that works. People have got to have money, that's one thing. And then they got to be all on the same page. And when you've got like one person owning the farm, that's a little bit easier than when you've got multiple owners of a family farm that they inherited. It also works the same way when you've got multiple owners of like a homeowners association, or when you've got partners on a business, or multiple people who got together, very much like Western Kentucky, where I just was consulting. You've got multiple owners that lump their money together to all have a hunting property. So you got like 4 or 5 or 6 owners like that. So every single person has an equal say in how it's done, what's done, that kind of thing. And when you get into those types of situations, it's just a time suck. You got to get everybody on the same page. And that's really hard to do, even if you just have 4 or 5 people. Did I get him? Hate you, mosquito. He's going to bite me up. It's not that cold down here, boys. It was like 80 today, although it was a beautiful 80 degrees, like a Southern California 80, windy and kind of drier air, but still pretty warm in Central Florida. That's right, Midwest. A lot of sediment and shallow water, which increases the heat stress and lack of shade. Lots of problems, but we know we're going to correct it. Yep. Yep. All true things. You wish for 80 degrees hooking up? I bet you do, man. I bet it's freezing up there. Well, boys, it's coming up on an hour of yakking. I think I said more about college football than I did about bonds, but 53 and rainy, 34-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah, fishing was not fun for you today. No. Eesh. That's like dead of winter weather here, man. That's brutal. We get a little bit of cold. It'll get down towards freezing at nighttime, not even really during the daytime. It's probably like at 40s, 45 mostly. But honestly, though, like when it's not like super cold like that, it's probably like 50, it's about 60, 55, 60 in the wintertime here. And it's beautiful, man. We're entering like the next, probably like, let's see, November, about 6 months. It's just like y'all's fall. You'll have a little bit of cold, you know, every once in a while you got to turn the water on and let the sink drip or it'll freeze maybe 2, 3 nights a year, 5 at the most. Because all my plumbing's exposed out here. We don't even bother burying half of it. It's not even deep enough. It doesn't get that cold here. Yeah, man. Glad you came through. Good to talk to you again. I've just been super busy with work and travel and going to ponds and stuff. Like you've been seeing the videos, so I'll get back on to coming on here a couple times a week. Yeah, we've had some rain too, man. Frank didn't get a notification. I don't know why that's happening, Frank. A couple people have said that. I think YouTube hates me. I figured you were just working. I just broke down what's going on at Mickey's and the general pond stuff. You all heard of this stuff all before, man. Yeah, really. You guys know each other. That's good, man. They've got 9 folks. Welcome aboard, everyone. Glad everybody's here. We could just pop the game on and drink beers, right? Everybody just shoot the breeze alive. There was something else on the tip of my tongue. I was going to touch on it. Now it's gone. It was super important, and we all would have gotten rich with that information, boys. I have been I have been making people mad on the internet. Well, they made me mad, and then I made them mad, and they continue to keep it going. There's a 16-pounder dude caught somewhere, Arizona maybe. It was probably the worst fish handling video I have ever seen. Dude, first of all, he takes it out of the live well, and I'm like, okay, how big is the live well? That might be what it is, Frank. Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. Just resubscribe. Maybe that'll help it. So I blasted, dude. I went in there mad. I was upset. The dude jumped. He lipped a 16-pound bass, took it by the bottom lip and wrenched it, and then jumped out of the boat onto the ground with it. So that's a sprained or broken jaw, practically guaranteed. I mean, the fish couldn't even close its mouth when it was on the scale. It was sprained open. And I don't know, maybe a minute and a half video. They put it in the oxygen, maybe 20 seconds. It's like, you could let that fish breathe a little bit. It's only, 6 pounds off the world record. You might as well put a fillet knife to it now. And I just get like hate, man. Just these guys, these uneducated dudes that it's almost like I've been called indoctrinated more times. There must be something going around in the media somewhere where people are watching stuff where having a college education means you've been indoctrinated by liberals. I don't think they're familiar with the Warnell School of Forestry at the University of Georgia because it is as far away from that as you could possibly be. We had a saying there: we grew them tall, we cut them all. You know, we were foresters. It's a forestry program. Um, it is not a liberal arts college. So I don't know who's starting this nonsense about everybody who went to college is liberal person or whatever, because they're calling me a Democrat. They're calling me, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not even here to talk about politics, right? I've voted for some Democrats. I've voted for some Republicans. I've voted for some independents. You know, I don't really get married to any one party because you might have to vote against it the next time. This whole identity politics thing is getting out of control around here. Anyway, I don't know, indoctrinated, like, and it's a lot of people on Facebook and a lot of people here sometimes too, but Facebook's the worst. And it's ridiculous, Midwest. That's what I'm saying, hooking up. That's what I'm saying. I was like, you guys don't, if you think that's okay, if you can't look at that video and see at least 2 or 3 problems with the way that fish was handled, because it was literally a minute and 45-second documentary on how not to handle any fish, much less a 16-pound fish. You'll wonder why we don't have any world records broken. Watch that video. And the just the outpouring of negative comments at me about being whatever, and I'm like, no, none of that's right. And they call me PETA, they call me a Democrat, they call me a lot of things I can't say, and generally I just let that stuff go, but not on that video, not this time. Like, I am not taking it from them, and I have been wreaking havoc, just blasting them. Maybe it's not a good look. Don't care. Not letting you win that one. That's not happening. Especially at this point, man. I worked too hard on here. I've been on way too many podcasts. Like, I honestly thought a little bit in the back of my mind, I thought, if I go on here and I act really mad, which I didn't have to act actually at all. But if I go on and I put that out there, that's going to straighten them up. They're going to never heard of me, don't care. I'm a liberal arts, PETA, biologist or something like that. And it's just the name calling is ridiculous. And I'm sticking with the facts. You know what I mean? I wrote a book, and hundreds of people have clicked like on the book that I wrote about how the fish was poorly handled, and could go on and on and on. It's just, again, it's literally a documentary on how not to handle a fish. But I think the most concerning, I told you all that to tell you this, the most concerning part are the guys. There's a lot of guys who are wrong, just flat wrong. But they would rather, if they spent the amount of time looking up what I'm talking about instead of arguing, they would realize, oh crap. But it's like they don't even look stuff up. Like, whatever they heard, from Uncle Rico back in '82, that's the gospel, buddy. And no amount of talking. That was another cool thing that happened too. Pond Stalkers, that was what it was. Pond Stalkers, I've made a post about it, goes on Google AI, right? And starts typing in bass growth. He's just seeing what pops up on the internet. And lo and behold, whose video gets recommended? From Google AI. Man, I was so proud of that. That was super cool. He sent it to me, he screenshot it and sent me he's like, dude, this is our researching like I think he was looking at like for F1s or something, you know, looking for some information on Google. And that's right, Frank. Old Uncle Rico can. She can throw that football over them mountains. You're right, hooking up. They facts are the facts, and I'm keeping it with the facts. Now, again, I am being rude. I will say that, but I will say this too. You deserve to get. What I can't figure out is even the people who agree with me are tone policing me. I'm like, I have a better idea. Instead of tone policing me, how about you just pour? Because the only reason these people are this confident and this stubborn is because there's so many of them, right? So that makes them right, makes me wrong. Well, I hate to break it to them. There's a hell of a lot more people that dropped out of school and can't graduate with a GED in high school than there are people who graduated with fisheries degrees, right? That's just pretty common sense, critical thinking type stuff. But at the same time, the people that I'm dealing with lack all of that. That's how we got here. And there's a hell of a lot of them. Swim baits, I'm not. They don't think so out there. No stocking being done. I don't know. Oh, it's from Midwest comment. The trout fattening world record largemouth. Yeah, they're not. You're right. They're not stocking trout anymore. They pulled the trout stocking program. We're putting trout in the ponds. At Sugar Hill Pond anyway. That's why they're so freaking big. Yeah, exactly, Midwest. It's just ridiculous. It's like really like I can tie those two things I just said together. Didn't even mean to. I can put on my social media for the last 4 or 5 years, however long I've been doing this now, and I can put all this out there, and now Google AI will pull from it and show you a video about bass growth or fish handling, right? And AI picks me out and I've become a source of factual information for Google AI, but I can't get these idiots to listen or even Google it. I even said that to a few of them. Just go type it into Google AI. You'll get my videos, dude. You know, if you want to talk smack like that, won't you guys go get yourself referenced by AI and then come back and talk to me about it? That's what I'm saying, man. And that's what I had a conversation with a guy today. He still got pissy and tone police me, but whatever. Maybe in the back of their head, and I tell them, you know, I don't care how many of you guys team up on me, say whatever you want to say. I'm not letting this one go. That's not how that works. You're wrong. Go Google it. Just go Google it. I'll be there waiting for you. Dude, you're not missing anything on Instagram. You're not, you know, it's gotten to the point. I'm hoping, you know, YouTube gets a little bit better traction, honestly. I'm giving up on Meta. I haven't been on Facebook in a while. I'm tired of arguing on Facebook. Facebook's the worst for this is what I'm describing in this one post that I happen to make. I usually don't make comments on very many posts anyway, but there's one post where I really, really blasted guys. I opened myself up to that. I knew where I was going with that, and I knew I was going to follow through with that because I knew that post was going to get a lot of traction. I knew it was going to get a lot of eyes on it. And the reason I went in the direction that I went is I thought that I drew enough water that people would be like, oh crap, aquatic biologist is like talking shit about us, you know? That doesn't matter, dude. Doesn't matter at all. Doesn't even phase them a bit, you know? So maybe my ego got in the way there a little bit. I was trying to check them and it did not work, but I'm still not backing down. And if they want to keep making comments, I'm going to roll right with it because, and like the guy told me today, he's, well, you've got to factual message, but a poor delivery. And I'm like, dude, I have had a good delivery, good enough to get me on like 60 podcasts and 40,000, social media followers. But this particular post, no, none of these dudes are getting a good delivery. They don't deserve it. If they're defending that, I'm whacking them, figuratively speaking. I'm not hurting anyone, but it's, I don't know, aggravating. And I won't make that approach on anything again. That was, in a way, it was a mistake, and I recognize that. But there again, I can recognize I made a mistake and correct said problem, right? I generally don't go about things that way anyway. They can't recognize they made a mistake. Same here, you man. I'm same here. I'm glad you're here, bro. And that's another thing too, man. Like, most people just go on to pour out hate all the time. Obviously, they're just looking for it. And I'm sorry, Facebook is the absolute worst. I get conversations like that one that I opened myself up on, that I did to myself on Instagram. I usually don't have those problems on Instagram, but that one on Instagram, they're almost all like that on Facebook. I'm just not going back. I deleted Facebook. I can copy stuff to Facebook still because it's Meta. It's Instagram and Facebook are the same people. So I'll copy stuff over to Facebook. So the people over there, the like 4,000 followers or whatever I got over there, can see the stuff. But I'm not going back to Facebook to comment. I'm not going to participate. Facebook can go fly a kite. Those people are too stubborn, too old, too whatever. It's just a waste of time. And I'm tired of spinning my tires. Any energies that I spend on Facebook could be spent here, and making a difference on YouTube, where I'm actually paid pretty fairly for my time here. So at least way more fairly than that. I don't know, man. I appreciate that. But like I told the kid who told me today, he said is a good message, but wrong delivery. And he's right. I said, you're right. You are right. That was my first sentence to him. You are right. But I was just, again, I thought people would know who I was enough to go, wow, that was way out of character for him to be that mad and say that way. But it didn't matter. They don't even know. They don't read anything. They don't look at anything. They're not looking at podcasts. Doesn't matter. You can go on a million podcasts. Wouldn't matter. They're not trying at all. They're too busy coloring on the desk in attention, I suppose. I don't know what they're doing, but they're detached from reality in a bad way over there. That's what I thought, Secret. Boy, was I wrong. You are not wrong about that, hooking up. They are never wrong. And they always think that if they make the last comment, they won the argument. So I don't let them make the last comment. One guy's been going on for days, coming back. I'm going to start giving him Shoresy quotes next, man. I'm going to so dumb. That's going to be my next one, I think. I'm just going to start pulling random quotes. He's not getting the last word, though. Yeah, you're right about that, Secret. And again, there's such a large number of them that they think that since there's a group that they're right. And the one lived hard liberal arts degree, I guess, that I got over there at university. It's not like I don't have a professional degree. I was trying to explain that to a few of them. It's like I'm trained to do this job in school, like a vet or a pharmacist or a lawyer. This is a training for a job. This is not women's studies in basket weaving or whatever. This is fishery science and how you become a biologist and do this for a living. That doesn't sink in somehow. Like they don't understand that at all. It's amazing, dude. Yeah, I'm with you on that hooking up. Just the toxicity of Facebook is sad. It's obviously a generational thing, right? Because I'm not getting it on Instagram. I mean, I invited it into my life on Instagram. You know, you could do that. But for the most part, with like 20, like about almost 21,000 people following me now, I hardly ever get any blowback. Everybody's pretty cool. Just there to learn, listen, check out what's going on. That's cool. Um, Met you guys. And I would say in general, I've been very fortunate and like when you look at the toxicity of the internet and how social media like that's what I said to the guy today as a matter of fact. It's like I don't mind being negative because negativity is what's shared on social media. More people will see it if you're negative, and then that equates to money. So that's how all of our problems and all these things keep getting perpetuated because the people who stir up the most negativity are paid the most on social media. So it just is a compounding thing. And then people who are not trying to stir, they're just trying to teach people something are not shared or it's very hard for if you're not perpetuating constant negativity all the time, you don't make a lot of money on social media. So it's divisive by nature. Yeah, that's what I don't get. Like hooking up, you're saying there's a lot of left and right outside of politics, right? It's like this identity politics is bled out to bass fishing, and like again, some guy called me a PETA Democrat. I think is how he phrased it, something along the lines, anyway. And I'm like, I tell people to kill bass. How am I PETA? But again, he doesn't know me. He's just looking at the one comment that I made to some dude about how that's not the way that's done. And he sees it says biologist and he makes assumptions. Peer reviewed science, people can't distinguish. They can't distinguish between that's right. That is exactly it, Midwest. They think because so many people have the same opinion that makes it a fact. When in fact, I've even had them like come at me that way. Well, that's like your opinion. I'm like, no, no, it's not. It's not my opinion. That's your opinion, not my opinion. I hadn't even got into, if we were talking about my opinion, you would be crying. I'm not giving you my opinion about nothing. These are facts as it plays out in the field. The sky is blue, water is wet. That ain't how you handle a 16-pound bass. The end. Yeah, Midwest. You're a sharp dude, man. I see what you're saying. Swim Baits is saying he's got to walk a fine line because those are people that he's in business to sell stuff too. Um, yeah, I'm not. This doesn't make me enough money to worry about the money. So I'm fortunate there. This isn't affecting a business of some kind. This is just you know maybe one day if I get enough followers or whatever. It looks to me too, like in talking to Alex and the other dudes that have helped me along the way. Ask Rudd and um, Oliver Nye, and just I don't know. I've been really fortunate to meet a lot of cool people. But Milliken's another real cool guy that I got to meet on from this. And just in chit chatting with them, it's about a decade long process. It looks like I'm about halfway through it. I'll know if I'll be something on YouTube in 5 more years or so. Um, I think it just takes that long, and I'm not surprised. It's any business. You're not. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that go on and make 100 videos and are making a bank on YouTube, but um, starting my pond business didn't was a it wasn't quite 10 years, but it was closer to 10 years than it was two. I'd say 6 or 7 years in, and then you're going pretty good. And then by a decade in, you're rolling along. So I think the same thing applies here. Um, Plus, again, I'm talking about fisheries management, dude. Um, I agree with you, Secret. He's saying that this, he believes that science and facts will bring you to the fish, and yeah, dude, I agree with that. Um, I've always done pretty well, you know. Let's put it this way, I've had people say that are non-fishermen, just acquaintances or personal friends or whatever, and then I'll go fishing and I'll catch a nice one. Um, and then I catch another nice one. I send them a picture, send them another picture, a little while later or whatever, and they're like, "Man, that's the biggest fish," and they're really nice, 6, 7 pounders, not even that big, but um, it blows people away, you know. And maybe I take it for granted a little bit, but it's something I've been doing my whole life. I ought to be good at it, right? I mean, pretty good at it anyway. Um, I'm not going to win the Bassmaster Classic, nor would I even want to, nor do I even enjoy hanging around with tournament bass fishermen for the most part. My fishing for me, and I think it comes from being a pond consultant. It doesn't matter if I can go catch the fish. My client has to catch the fish. That is what paid the bills, right? So it's almost like being a fishing guide in that way. You can go catch them all you want, but the guy that's paying you is the one who needs to catch them, and then you'll have a client. So I don't derive any ego or don't fishing's my zen place, right? It's where I go to relax place. And when you start bringing money and competition and hey, let's put the worst thing you can say to me is let's make this interesting when we're going fishing. We'll make it interesting. I'll leave you in the lake and freaking go fishing. You can stand on that island over there while I go have a good time. And you can make it interesting swimming home. I don't like that. I don't want to fish for money. Don't cheapen my damn fishing that way, please. I'm with you, hooking up. Facts, not opinions, right? We can talk about opinions. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with talking about opinions, but um, don't give me your opinion of growing trophy bass when I'm breaking down the 10-step process of how it's done and how it's been done and how it will be done forever. That's not my opinion. I usually stay away from my opinions on social media all the way around, just stick pretty close to what I boots on the ground experiences. You got that right, swim baits. That's it. Yeah, and that's what I'll be doing too, man. I'll always be after the bigs. I can go fishing for a year and not catch a fish, you know. But at the end of the year, if I get that, if I get that good one, I'm happy. That's all I need. I think you're right, Midwest. But it's also important to understand, especially if you're trying to build, they share those short format videos in a different way. Um, and it does I mean, they can pop off. I've had a couple of them pop for 100,000, 200,000. One of them popped for like 1.2 million. So you can, if you hit the right, and I don't even know what it is. I mean, I don't think anybody could script what it is. Um, just keep firing into it. You just keep putting stuff out. Some of them get hits, some of them don't. Is what it is there, man. I agree with you there, hooking up. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying I've never fished in tournaments. I absolutely have. And I probably will fish a tournament again one day too. You know what I mean? But I don't know. The last person that did it to me, he was a follower on here, and I went over to a lake not too far down the road there, and he was over there. I went over there just to fish with him, and I kind of got that vibe from him the first time we went, but I really got that vibe from him the second time we went, and he made it into like a competition, a contest, and a big D contest is basically all that is. I didn't appreciate it. I didn't like it. I don't like it. He's no longer looking at me in any he's not around me anymore. Um I just have you ever been fishing with somebody before and you happen to be the person that catches the big fish or a big fish and then the guy on the boat that's fishing with you is pissed off the rest of the day and it's uncomfortable because the fish just happened to hit your lure and you're 10 feet, 12 feet apart, you know what I mean? And you're both going to the same bank and you just happen to get the fish and he doesn't. I don't look at that as being the better fisherman, especially when I'm on the back of the boat. Usually back then, anyway, I was the back of the boat or it was their boat. I was along for the ride. You pin a nice one and now they're all bent out of shape and the whole day's uncomfortable. Man, I hate that more than anything. It's like, just put me back on the bank if you're gonna act like that. Yeah, I think the online tournaments would be better, you know? Um, Now I will admit this, when the elite guys came, I went to Palaka and got to talk with Ben, and meet him in person, and I've talked to him a few times. He was in that debate with, that Randy dude that's on here, that's got a bunch of followers, and they were on some podcast, and we I gave him some tips and some pointers and things like that because they were talking science stuff. But Milliken's got a science degree. He's got an environmental science degree, so he's no dummy, man. But when the elite guys came, I just rode to a couple spots and just to see, would I catch a limit? Could I catch a limit? And then did they catch a limit? And that was it. And so I went and I did. I caught my limit of fish and they went, I wasn't. I probably had 12 pounds of fish or whatever. But when I went to the weigh-in, there was half the field didn't even have that. Didn't have any fish at all. So, I felt good about that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Their competitive fishing, I was just seeing if I was in the competition, would I have weighed fish? And I would have. And there's a lot of elite series anglers that didn't. That doesn't mean they didn't turn around and catch 30 pounds the next day and catch back up, which I never do, but that's beside the point. Right? I hear you that on, Frank. That's a good one. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't it's just how I am, you know. I don't hold it against anybody who tournament fishes or nothing like that. I think it's great. I think it's a shame that the tournament fishermen are letting tournament fishing clog their ears for fisheries management because if working together is the only way that we're going to correct a lot of these lakes, and if the tournaments would structure their tournaments around helping correct the fisheries, it could be a very powerful and useful tool. So that's unfortunate but it seems to go that way. Like somehow they think that being a fisheries or being a fisherman, I don't know, all the fisheries management information seems to, go into their brain too, and it doesn't. But I've had that happen to me too, hooking up. I have yeah, they stop fishing with you because they can't handle it. And they're lost, man. I'm with you on that, Midwest. I'm feel the same way. And that's fine. Like I said, I'll probably fish a tournament again one day. but I don't know, man. Yeah, Midwest is going to split for the evening. It's good chatting with you, and I think I'm going to split for the evening too. I got to get up and go to work. And it's good. That's a good talk. Started out a little. I guess nobody got the alert, so it started out I was all alone. But there's some good information on the on on the front load this one again, boys. You probably all heard it before. But listening to it again ain't gonna hurt, and it helps people. I know I read something. Well, maybe I heard it on the internet, but people have to hear stuff. Like the average person has to hear stuff about 3 times before they fully start comprehending it. So it's not bad to go over stuff. I know I probably need to hear things probably like 30 times. Got that sometime syndrome where, yeah, whatever. But appreciate you, boys. I'm gonna cut her off and get some sleep, and I'll be back a couple times, man, and towards the end of the week probably. Oh, nice. Good luck, man. I hope you catch a big one. I'll holler at you boys later. Be easy now.